Hey guys, welcome to my live annual review. My name is Daryl, and I am the creator of The Office. And so, for those of you who don't know me, I am an artist on purpose. I am an entrepreneur kind of by accident. And then I became a business coach sort of like out of demand, right? I started my first business as a freelance photographer in New York City after I graduated from NYU in about 2014. And I was like the epitome of like the straight A student, and got into my dream school. And I just continued to pursue my dreams under sort of what I thought my definition of success was. But it was really society's definition, right? Like just because like you go to art school and just because you're pursuing your passion doesn't mean that you are setting goals that are like working you towards like your own definition of success. So long story short, after COVID shut down my business and I was like struggling to keep my dream alive, I ended up having like a full on mental breakdown from just burning out, And I don't think that that's like a sob story or anything. I just think that it's kind of interesting that I ended up in a mental hospital basically from just doing the right thing over and over again. And it's just, you don't realize that the right thing is actually the wrong thing, because when we're educated in like a westernized system, we're really like rewarded for being compliant, right? From the moment we start school, we're told where we need to go, when we need to go there, why we're going there, what we need to learn, how we need to learn. And so our grades are determined on our ability to like memorize facts and like get another person's approval. And that really makes sense for the pipeline for like getting a 9 to 5 job. But if you're like one of the many people who are pursuing their own career or business, whether that's you being a photographer like I was, being a coach like I am now, or being an entrepreneur, or any of the many things that people can become, I think now in 2026, it's like not that unusual for people to want to pursue something that's in alignment with their values. But the problem is that most of us have no idea how to actually do that. And especially those of us who are like have no corporate experience, we may not know the basics of like managing our lives and our operations. So Notion came into my life because when I was running my business, when I was running my production studio, I should say, in New York, I needed an operational system to keep track of clients, keep track of to-do lists, and manage a team. And so I learned a lot of the skills from there. But it wasn't until I burned out and I had to contend with the fact that, okay, I have an organizational system. I'm really good at operations. My brain really loves mapping systems. But why was I ending up in a place where I wasn't happy? I was like reaching my goals, but it wasn't actually bringing alignment into my life. So this is where I discovered the idea of core values. And I'm not really, I obviously can't stake claim in that idea. Like, I think if you're one of the people here who have probably read any infinite number of self-help books, they all come down to like defining your core values for yourself so that you can set goals that are not just like based off of another person's success, like go to school, get a job, get married, settle down, have the 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, but what are the reasons for why you're doing what you're doing? And also, how do you define them? So today I'm going to walk you guys through, so, or I should say, I'm going to show you guys how I do this with The Office, centered on like the very first step in this entire system, which is my annual review. And so since it's only been about, I don't know, 3-4 days since New Year's, I figured it would be a good time as ever for us to essentially walk through this annual process together. And so I'm going to share my screen here and go to The Office. And for those of you who are coming from my free habit tracker, this is going to look a little bit different than what the version that you have, because this is actually the complete Office that you can buy. And for those of you who are attending this call, I'm going to put a promo code at the end. So as a little thank you for attending, that'll give you a little discount for The Office that you can't find anywhere else. So I want to go to the window and then oops. Okay. All right, so this is the office, and it's inside of obviously the software Notion, and it right now is in dark mode, but if you would prefer, you can change it to light mode pretty easily just by going here, going to settings, and changing the preferences to light. But I find that very jarring, so I'm going to do dark. But mostly today we are going to, sorry, let me close this. Be doing step 2 in the setup process. So when you get the office, it comes with a little welcome video, and it comes with all of the steps needed to build out and customize this space. Because my beef with the template world in Notion, and honestly just like the productivity tool world at large, whether that's ClickUp or Asana or Monday, is that it just puts you in the same exact system that got you to this frustrating place, which is like, I'm not happy at my job. I don't feel like I'm, or if I don't, if we're, sorry, I should say, if I am not happy at my job and I've quit and I'm trying to pursue my dreams, I don't actually feel like I'm working towards my big picture vision for life. And that's because most of these systems don't do this one fundamental step, which we do in our annual review, which is to define our values. Because when we define our values, we can then use them to set goals so that we can plan our projects and then ultimately schedule our tasks to make sure that we are living in alignment with our values. So when you get this system, it actually walks you through this entire step-by-step process, but these are centered in an operating schedule that I like to call the habit tracker. And so some of you might be saying, like, what do you mean? Like, a habit tracker is just like a daily bullet journal that like makes sure you're like getting your 10 pages read and like you're drinking your water. And yes, the habit tracker does have that. I'll show you here quickly that there is a template for a very basic day-to-day habit tracker that you can basically open up. This is a full page. You can basically like do your little journal every single day. And if you're like me and you like to do a recording instead, you can add that there. And this has all of your basic habits, right? To start your day inside of Notion, take your vitamins, work out, and all of this is customizable. But that's really not the thing that makes this super powerful. What makes it super powerful is that we also have habits for our weeks, which is where we schedule our tasks, our months, which is where we plan our projects, our quarters, which is where we set our goals, and then our years, which is what we're doing today, which is where we define our values for the first time, and then year after year, review those values to see, hey, how close am I to actually living in alignment with those things? So in this step, we're not only going to be setting our or like defining our values or like customizing the habit tracker, we're also going to be giving you some insight on how you can review those value definitions in a way where setting goals become a opportunity for you to like really get clear. Like, okay, I don't want to just set a random goal of like making $1 million if there's not a purpose behind it, or if there's not some sort of like bigger picture reason for why I want to make that money, right? Because money is honestly what we would call like a secondary motivator. It's like what you want to do with it that matters. So with that, I'm just going to show you guys how we can mark this step as in progress, which is a big part of what makes Notion super powerful. This is going to be our task list that holds all of the tasks for our project of the office itself. And it hopefully gives you guys some insight on how, once you've completed this list, I should say this list down here, will be like populated with like all of your tasks across all of your projects. But you haven't done that yet. If you get the office and you complete all of these, this will become your own very customized system, which is what makes me so proud of being able to share it with people. Because normally I charge like as a certified Notion consultant, I charge upwards of like $3,000 for me to custom build this for you. But this is my way of giving you guys like an affordable version of my one-on-one service, and at a price point that I would have actually been able to afford back in the day when I really needed this. You know, like when I ran my first business, I did not have an extra $3,000 to throw at an operational support system. Okay. But if you are in a position where you're ready to scale and you might not have as much time, but you do have the money, I can sit with you and provide a really comprehensive like version of this that's like even more bespoke to exactly how you operate, as well as training your team on how to use it. But I digress. I'm sure you guys just want to get right into this. So what we're going to do is head down to where it says habits, and we're going to want to make sure that we're on the year database, and that's within the habit tracker itself. And when you click into this, you may recognize this as the actual habit tracker that you downloaded for free. And if you were one of the lucky ones that got this before it went behind a paywall at the end of last year, good for you, because now it's not available anywhere. And so the only way you can get access to it is by purchasing the office itself. So like I said, we're going to go down to years, and we're going to open up a new yearly template. And this has basically everything that you need inside of it. We'll go over each one of these properties here in a second, which you're going to have to customize in order to really make it your own. But the most important thing here is the key at the top. And we talked a little bit about this a second ago, but essentially it tells us for the annual review when we need to do it, which is every year, who we need to be when we're doing it, and then what we need to do with that mentality, okay? Because I will say it once and I will say it again. As entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and creatives, we like to say that like, oh, I have to wear all the hats, you know, I have to be the CEO and the founder and the manager and the accountant and the social media director and all these things. But what really like causes that to be a problem is that we try to wear them all at once. And this is a symptom of us really not having corporate experience or not being trained in corporate structures, right? Because could you imagine if like the CEO of a corporation was like breathing down the neck of like one of the employees trying to get something done? Like that just is like a chaotic thought. But as people who work for themselves and often by themselves, we do that every day, all the time. And so you might be sitting there thinking like, oh, like why can't I like connect the big picture with like my day to day? And it's like, the problem isn't that you can't, it's that you're trying to do it at the same time. So what we're going to do with the annual review is really say, okay, this is my moment to be the visionary. This is my one moment in the year where I can think super big picture and then just have faith that I have set myself up for the year by really reviewing and defining my core values. And then we really don't have to be concerned about whether or not we're living in alignment because we've already taken care of this, right? We've already gone through all of our values and say, hey, this is what matters to me. And we're going to set goals from that. And then as long as you've done this step properly, we don't have to be concerned throughout the rest of the year that like, oh, am I working towards my values? And so it takes a little bit of trust, and it takes a lot of unlearning bad sort of indoctrinated habits of thinking like we've got to do this all the time. But I really would encourage you guys to look up a article called like Maker Schedule, Manager Schedule. I think it's by a guy named Paul G. I should really have that pulled up for you guys. Maybe I'll put it into the template here. But he talks about how like the manager has a flow state and the maker has a flow state. And so that's the other problem that I'm really trying to solve for like the younger version of myself, which is that I would like constantly interrupt like my workflow of trying to be creative, of like trying to create projects as a photographer and like really be on set, because I'm always like looking left and right and trying to like manage myself at the same time. You know, like Beyonce wouldn't interrupt her concert to talk about the tour schedule with her team. Okay. So we need to put you in a position where by the time we have gone through each one of these habits, you know, yearly doing our visionary review, of our values, quarterly doing our goal setting as the CEO version of ourselves, monthly being the project manager and like strategizing the actual action steps to make sure we're working towards those goal deadlines, because goals must have deadlines in order for them to be real. And then ultimately, when you're opening up your Notion in the form of the office, right? You're going to get to a task list here that has already gone through the gauntlet of like checks and balances of, does this actually connect to my projects, that connect to my goals, that connect to my values, so that there are no floating tasks, right? And that's the other problem that we experience as solopreneurs, is that we are using our list of tasks and our day-to-day to-do list to try and like hope and pray that we might be one day reaching our goals and potentially our values. And so as long as we stop, review, write them down, and do this in order, like it really makes it almost impossible for you to have a task in your system that is out of alignment. Okay, so it's not complicated, but it is difficult because this is going to be a big like unlearning process as much as it is as learning a new way of doing things. But I promise you, if you stick with it and you get the office, I also provide like these emails that you'll get once a week to sort of hold you accountable. And also, as a thank you for my early adopters, I've put in a little free setup session where you get a one-on-one with me where I will answer literally every single question that you have. But I encourage you to do that at the end of the office once you've set it up, which is why it's the final step in the setup task list. So I'm sure you're like, Daryl, can we just like actually do the exercise? And we can. So the first thing we're going to want to do is obviously change the year to 2026, like duh. And quarter and month are going to be empty here because you simply have never done a quarterly review or a monthly review. At the end of this, I'll show you how we click into this property database to create the first quarterly review and how that populates on our homepage. But for now, we're just going to skip that. The date's going to be the 1st of January, and then we're going to toggle on the end date and go to the end of December here, 31st. And then we're going to go right into our first step of the review process, which is like, what were our wins from last year and what were our losses from last year? Okay, so it's important to note that 2026 is a review of last year so that we can plan for the future ahead, okay? So for example, I ran 10K for the first time ever, not in like a marathon or anything. I just have never run that long of a distance in my entire life. So I'm really proud of that. And then I also launched the office this year, which was amazing. And then what else happened? I traveled full time as an artist, which is pretty freaking cool if you ask me. And then you can write as much or as little as you would like in here. And you can also use your dictation tool on your computer if you prefer text to or speech to text. I know I do. But you're not going to run out of space here. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of keep moving along. Losses, let's see here. I didn't meet my sales goals last year. And that's ultimately because I lost my biggest consulting contract. But, you know, for context, even though I'm sad that I lost that big client, the reasons for why I lost it were because my values did not align with the client's values. And so I think it's important for us to think about losses as like, hey, listen, it was a setback, but always try and like come back to a place of being like, why did this happen? Is it because I was like lazy and like drunk on the job? Or was it because like I genuinely was trying my best and it just didn't work out for probably good reason? So you'll definitely see me setting a new sales goal where I can potentially set that marker for this year and really reach it, but not by, you know, compromising my values, right? Because that's the whole point of this thing. Now, then we have the habits themselves. And this is like really important because you're probably like, Daryl, like, why are we calling them annual habits? Well, it's because ultimately the yearly database is holding our yearly habits of doing our annual review, potentially doing a vision board, and then ultimately updating our values. But since this is the first time we've ever done this, we're going to actually have to define our values first before we can quote unquote like update the challenges or the limitations that we're experiencing that are sort of preventing us from really living in alignment with that definition. So you'll notice as I check these off, the progress bar moves towards 100%. And like, I don't know about you, like getting 100% on my habits, like really is motivating. I'm like still a teacher's pet at the end of the day. Okay. So if you wanted to change these habits, like let's say you don't want to do a vision board, you like to do sort of like a letter from your future self. You can do that. And then you can also change the property description to just say, write a letter from the future version of yourself. And that's helpful because if you're only doing this once a year, you can hover your mouse over the property and it'll like remind you what this habit actually is. But then we have our followers, our income, and our steps. And these are the metrics that I have selected to track, but you can obviously change them as well. So the reason why I do followers, income, and steps is because they cover like 3 pretty major categories of your life, which is like health, money, and then just ultimately like growth in your business. So you'll notice here that I've defined this as total across all platforms, income, which would be gross income from last year, not expenses. And then I'm really big on getting my 10,000 steps. So I can open up my health app and actually see what my average steps were. This is not total steps that I did throughout the year because that would be like a lot, obviously. But again, you can change this to whatever you like. So if you don't want to do followers, you could do the total number of clients you had, or how many grants you won if you're in research or if you're like a fine artist. Ultimately, you can create whatever metrics that you want, but it's important to know that you don't overdo it with habits or metrics because you just want to take a snapshot, right? You just want to be able to have a way to keep track of like how much growth you've had over a year, because ultimately this time next year, you're going to be reflecting on the numbers that you did last year to see like, hey, listen, even though day to day, I didn't feel like I was growing, or maybe it was sort of like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Ultimately, like I really did see growth over time. And that's the other reason for why I think it's super important that a habit tracker doesn't only have the day-to-day habits, like most of the ones that you see out there in the marketplace, but actually show us these larger cycles of time so that we can see the trend from a sort of wider lens, you know? So I think I actually am almost at 3,500 Instagram followers. I like weirdly gained almost 1,000 followers like over the last month from like one video. So that's good. And then income would be, I think I made about $65,000 last year. I'd love to see myself double that this year. And then my average steps, I think were around, like they were pretty high. I'm going to give it 9,000, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to open my phone and bog us down there. So next is like the body section of this page. I know we already went over the key, and this key is inside of every single template for every single cycle of time within the habit tracker. So on the quarter, it's going to say every quarter for the when, the who's going to be the CEO, and the what's going to be the values, or sorry, the goals. And then for month, it would be every month, obviously. Who would be the manager? Because the manager is the one who sort of takes goals and turns them into project plans. So the what would be planning the project. And then weeks would be every single week. At the beginning of the week, you'd become the employee version of yourself and really think about what schedule you need to have for your tasks throughout the week to make sure that you're staying on deadline for those goals and actually following through on the tasks that you planned from the previous meeting with yourself. Okay. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. We have our values database here, which is where we're going to actually be adding our values themselves. And then we have our vision board. I really love just grabbing images that inspire me throughout the year, or sorry, I should say that will inspire me for the year ahead. So to do this, I'm just going to make a column. Let's do 5 columns, and then we can also just press the / to get this pop-up window to find an image block. And I'm not going to go through every single one of the different types of blocks that you can put into Notion, but let's just say that there is basically an infinite number of options. I feel like Notion is sort of a combination of Evernote and Squarespace and like Google Docs, but like all in one. And I am a big believer of like using visual markers and like mood boards to really like bring these things to life. But listen, I don't want you to think that this is supposed to replace your analog processes. It's supposed to support it. So if you prefer to do something like a vision board on a poster board and get your Mod Podge out and get your old magazines out and really cut and paste some things, you can totally do that. I would just encourage you to like take an actual picture of that and put it into the vision board here so that you can take it with you and also have an archive of it to look at in the next year. Because if you're like me and you travel full time, like it's not something that you can necessarily take with you. But anyways, now that we have an image block, we can upload an image that we have, let's say, downloaded from our Pinterest board or like taking a picture of on our phone. You can also embed a link of an image. Notion also comes with this stock image company, Unsplash. So if you wanted to, I don't know, get into running, you could type running and you'd have all of these, if I can actually type, you'd have all of these images. There was a cool black and white one. Let me see if I can find it. That one was cool. And then we can go here and do another image. I want to show you this option, Giphy. So I really want to get my like health life together, like sauna every day, like red light therapy. I want my like whole world to like run around taking care of my physical body. Like, I don't know about you guys, I'm in my 30s and early 30s at that, and I literally injured myself getting up out of bed the other day. So we're going to need to reckon with that. So let's see if there's a funny, oh, the sign, of course. Let's put a little Seinfeld gif here of Kramer, but you know, I'm not going to really bog us down here with a vision board. That's obviously something that you guys can do in your own time, but I just want to give you a little insight on like how powerful Notion is, how aesthetic it is, how fun it can be, and how this is not supposed to be some sort of like, you know, rigid system to like discipline you. Okay. It's supposed to be like a fun practice, like a devotional practice that's moving you towards the things you really care about. Okay. So the vision board will just mark as done. And I'm just going to rename this to vision board and then check this off as done. We'll come back and check off the annual review once we finish that, but let's move on to updating our values. So I have this values exercise right here. And this is the exact same values exercise that I did and found like 5 or 6 years ago when I was going through all of this sort of like crazy upheaval and like burnout in my life. And I have used this for every single one of my one-on-one clients across so many different industries. I mean, like I've worked with like PhD candidates and real estate executives and life coaches and fine artists and independent musicians and record labels. Like I have yet to find a single industry and scenario or individual where this doesn't work. But I want to warn you, like it simplifies the process. Is that a word? It simplifies the process of choosing your values with the process of elimination, but it's not going to be easy. Okay. If you're doing this right, it could take a whole evening. And like for me, it took like maybe week or two. Now, mind you, it was during COVID and I had plenty of time to kill and was getting paid to do nothing. So I just really luxuriated in sort of the time that I had. But I want you to know that whatever values you choose, that's only the first step. We're going to also need to define them for yourself. Because listen, my definition of freedom, which I've said here as the sample one, doing what I want when I want to, is not necessarily going to be your definition of freedom, if you even select that as your core value. And so once we've done that, the third step is going to be to add them to the database by clicking the new page here, and we'll just be able to type that value into here, put our definition there, and then go over limitations and goals at the end here. Because ultimately, the reason why we are listing our values is so that we can set our goals. And that's what turns our values into an operating system, like into a whole life operating system, right? And it also is a check and balance for us to be like, oh, I would like to do this one day versus no, I know I need to do this because if I want to live free, I need to get more organized, right? So that's why I have this sample goal here of building a creative operating system by the end of the first quarter, right? And when we actually click into that, it'll show us all of these other projects that I have created that are working you towards that goal itself. And all of those things come with the office. So don't worry, it will be there when you get it. But let's open up step one and wait for this to load here. Okay. So one of the other amazing things about Notion is that you can embed operational, like fully operating web pages into the page itself, which I really like because I get very easily distracted. If I have to click out into another window or another software, I am off to the races, being distracted, with the best of intentions, of course, starting another thing that I need to do on my to-do list. So having blinders on the things that I don't need to focus on by just making sure that everything is in the place that I need it when I need it is a game changer for me. So this is something called the values exercise, and it's by this company called Think to Perform. I don't know who created it. All that I know is that it's a digital stack of cards that hold over, I would say, 51 values. And if you'd like to do this in physical form, I have written a list of almost every single core value I've ever come across in alphabetical order here. And you can just grab a stack of index cards and write the value on the front of the card here, and then you can eventually define it on the back. But this way you can have this exercise like physicalized, because again, I don't want you to feel like you have to do it digitally. I just want to make sure that you get it done and then put it inside of the values database so that you can put it into action. So saying that to say, this is a very simple screen or like website. You can view the original website in its own browser by clicking out, but since we can do it in here, we're going to do it in here. You use the process of elimination to basically discard values that you're not interested in or are not resonating with, and then keep values that are, right? So I want to be wealthy, I want to be competent, don't really care so much about leadership or privacy or cooperation. I do want to achieve things. I do want to be educated. I do care about autonomy. Don't care about status. But essentially, what we're going to do here is go through all of these. And I'm going to do this sort of quickly so that we can see what it looks like when we're done. Family, challenges, integrity, love money, definitely want to be free. Diversity, I think, is a result of having integrity. Relationships, maybe. Fame, don't care about fame. Do care about the environment, but that's a subset of an existing value that I think is over here. Ethics, I think, is also integrity. Religion, I'm not religious. I do want stability. I do want to be happy. Don't really care about service or order. Care about honesty, creativity, adventure, excitement. Friendship, I think, is a part of relationships. Definitely care about pleasure. I don't want to be loyal just to be loyal. Don't really care about power unless it's self-empowerment. Don't really care about work. Care about meaningful work. Let's see. Independence, for sure. Security, excellence, change, not for the sake of change. Recognition, I'm on the fence, so no. And then definitely play. Faith is a part of religion. I'm not really a practicer of that. Safety, I don't like playing it safe. Really don't care about fairness. And then the last card here is actually an opportunity for you to add your own value. So for example, one value that doesn't come in this stack is love. That's a big value of mine. And I think it's just unconditional self-acceptance would be my definition. And then when you save it, it'll add it to the pile here. Now, once you're done, you're going to hit next, and this will go through your top, it'll force you, I should say, to select your top 15. So for me, that would be play, love, meaningful work, excellence, honesty, freedom, autonomy, happiness, creativity, health. I think education is a part of excellence. You may notice that some of the values you don't keep are simply nestled inside of the other values you do keep, right? So excellence is something I strive, but I'm not going to drag over education as well, because I would consider being educated as a way of like becoming excellent, right? Integrity is a big part of my morals. Helping others definitely as well. I definitely want to add pleasure. I think we underestimate that as a value in our lives. Let's see what else. Achievement is a part of excellence, so I won't add that. Independence is really important to me, to be able to like do what I want when I want to. I feel like that is different from freedom, although we'll see. And then relationships are really important to me. And there you have 15. So then we will do 10. And what's going to be revealed here is the definitions of the values that come with these cards. But I want you to understand that these are not necessarily going to be your definitions. So let's go ahead and just drag and drop our top 10 quickly here. And I've done this many times, so I feel like I can basically choose them very quickly. You are going to probably hopefully take more time than I am right now. Creativity is really big for me. Meaningful work is really big for me. Love and relationships, I feel like, go hand in hand. Pleasure is big for me, and integrity is very big for me. So let's move on to the top 5. And this is where we get really specific. I know freedom is definitely big for me. Love is big for me. Play is very big for me. Helping others and meaningful work are within the definition of love in my experience, or how I would see it. Creativity, I think, is a part of play, so I'm not going to add that. Integrity is also a part of love. So I would say honesty and excellence, because I would also say pleasure is a part of play. So let's hit next, and we can skip this window where it asks us for our information, because we don't need to be giving anybody our private info. I think they just want to get you on their newsletter list, although I'm guilty of that as well. And so then I'm just going to close this down in a toggle so we have a little bit more space, and go down to number 2, which is defining our values. Okay. So what this does is asks us to, actually, I think here, what it asks us to do is to list each one of these values. So what I'm going to do is just click here, and I'm going to say freedom. And then I'm going to add another value here, which is love. And then another value here, which is play. And then honesty and excellence. So I'm going to do honesty and excellence. Now, underneath each one of these values, there's a place for you to define excellence, which is, I would say, doing the best of my ability as far as I can take it. But the challenges I'm facing is, let's say, my education, right? I only have an undergraduate degree, and I would love to go back to school to really learn how to spell, right? And then, I don't know, maybe another difficulty with my excellence is just like, not being organized enough. And that's actually true for me, despite having, mastered Notion and having this system in my life. I've really sort of let my habits like fall by the wayside. And so this is really important part of my process as well, is to like recommit myself to the systems I know that work in my life, and understand that the reason why I'm not in alignment with my definitions of my values is because I'm not actually holding myself accountable to those systems. So I won't go through the rest of these just for the sake of time, but I do want to show you guys how to actually upload these values to your database, right? So you'll notice here that we have a duplicate of the values database, which you will also see up here, right? So write your value here is also down here. And that's actually a really important aspect of Notion, is that, we have our databases saved on our homepage here of the office, which is essentially our backend servers, which is why I have this do not touch warning, because we don't want to delete the original source of the information. Because if we do that and I go back here, then there will be no database for us to reference, okay? So that's essentially how that works. But I think the most important aspect of this is that we actually just write down our values, so we can have them in the system to connect them to our goals database. So this is going to be love. And I think we wrote unconditional self-acceptance. Let's say the limitation I'm experiencing is I'm not living according to my values, okay? And we will leave the goal empty because that's something we do in the end when we transfer from our yearly review to our quarterly review, take off our visionary hat and put on our CEO hat so that we can think about these limitations in terms of like setting a deadline with a goal that's measurable so that we are executing on solving these limitations, right? But that's not the job of the visionary. The visionary is very much just like, thinking philosophically. So once we've added all of our values to our value database, we can see them here, but we will also see them on our homepage. And that's what's really important about this system is that while we're executing these setup tasks, if you do it correctly, and you will, because I take care of you and hold your hand the entire time, you will see them show up in the appropriate places. So once you finish your annual review, you see all of your values, definitions, and limitations on your homepage for you to be able to reference throughout the year. You will also, after doing your quarterly habits, have all of your goals set up for the year, as well as keeping a future list of all the goals you eventually want to hit, because let's be honest, we all have aspirations, but differentiating between the ones that we are working on right now this year versus the ones we might want to get to at a future date is two completely different things. So I'm going to go back here, click on, let's say, actually, we're going to go back to 2026, open this up, and then, oops, got to open it up as a full page. Now, essentially, we can say that we've updated all our goals, even though I know technically we have more work that we need to do. But I want to bring your attention to this bonus section here that I mentioned briefly as one of the alternative habits besides just like doing a vision board. And that's the letter from your future self. And this is actually something that I found, I think, from Seth Godin, that really famous, he is like the most popular newsletter in the world. I was a subscriber for many years, but this is something I have taken with me and something I really like to do. And so again, if you would like to write it by hand and not in a digital space, you can totally do that. But the point of this exercise is to really think about who you are in your most ideal self, like 10 years from now, okay? What is she wearing? What does it smell like? What perfume is she wearing? What is the view outside of her window? What does it feel like to be in her body? Who is she with? Who are her friends? What is she currently working on? What has she achieved? How much money is she making? What country does she live in? Okay. And once you've really, really allowed yourself to fantasize through as much detail as possible, this usually reveals the kind of values that the aspirational version of yourself really wants to align with. And so it's another way to enter this process if like the process of elimination and just doing like a very sort of like list-based Capricorn, like, choose your values exercise, you can kind of be a little bit more poetic about it. And that honestly does align with that sort of like visionary mentality that we need to have in this process. But I'm not going to do that now with you. I just want to give you guys that option as a part of the values exercise so that I'm really covering all of the things that I have found doing this one-on-one with like so many different people and honoring the different types of ways that you can do this. So with that, we can check off the annual review. And the next step is going to be doing our quarterly review to become the CEO version of ourselves to really translate these limitations into goals. So let me just give you a quick little preview of that by going back down into our habit tracker here and then clicking quarters. And what we'll do is press a new page and just make sure that we are attaching this new quarter to the year that we just did so that everything is stacked on top of each other. You'll continue to do that for months and weeks and days so that you have a complete chain of connection from the year to all of the other data that you want to see. And this will make a lot more sense as you like finish the setup process in the office. But for now, what you'll notice is a very similar layout with, months and dates where you would select, January 1st, the end of the first quarter, which is March 31st. Wins and losses would be not for the last year, but for the last quarter. So from December, November, October, so October through December of last year. And you will get in the more of the weeds of like what happened within that cycle of time. And I think it's a really important differentiation, because you might be thinking, well, I just did wins and losses, Daryl, but like those were big picture. So really zoom in on that timeline when you're doing those. And then ultimately what I want to show you here is the key, which we talked about. But then this list of goals that you're going to be populating by going through each one of your value limitations and asking yourself, okay, what would a goal be that would allow me to live in alignment with my definition of love, which is unconditional self-acceptance? Unsurprisingly, it actually would be to build a creative operating system, because that's what would allow me to live in my values, all right, to live in alignment with them. So I know that this is only a sneak preview of one of the many, many aspects of the office, but I hope that it really inspires you to consider investing in this with yourself, or investing in yourself with this, I should say. And, thank you guys so much for coming to this. Like, I really have worked so hard. I mean, I perfected this over the last 5 years as a certified Notion consultant. But then if you add all of the years that I used it running my production company as well, we're coming up on 10 years of getting this system down. And I promise you, if you stay committed to it, you're going to be eliminating every single thing that is wasting your time and burning you out. Because while it seems like a lot, and it is in a lot of ways, it is only going to have you doing the things that move the needle. And once this is all set up, you're going to be able to come into your task list and know for a fact that there is nothing on your to-do list that is going to make you end up in the place that I did, okay? Which is burned out, ready to just go to Mexico and become a bartender and abandon my dreams. And listen, I know you probably are feeling like that too. And you may feel it again throughout the year, but these habits and these cycles of time are going to catch you in those moments and go, girl, listen, you had a rough day, you had a rough week. We're going to get back on the horse. We're going to remind ourselves why we are getting up in the morning, and we're going to show up for another day. Okay, so love you guys so much. Please be sure to email me if you have any questions. I have a support email here, as well as the setup session that comes with your purchasing of the office. But like I said, I was going to promise you guys to a little treat of a promo code where I'm going to be giving you, I believe I said 25% off. Okay, so that's going to be, somebody do the math, 20%, 30, 15, that's $75 off the office, which is normally $300. And you literally cannot find that discount code anywhere else. So I will put the code in the description of this video. And if you are seeing it, recorded, I am also going to ask you to say if you'd want me to do this again. I think I'm going to do this every single quarter for free to really show you guys how I continue to do these habits. And, if people show up and really like it, I'm even considering doing a weekly membership where we all show up every Sunday and do our little weekly review, so that we can have some accountability partners and keeping us inside of this schedule, because I certainly need that support, and who knows, maybe you will too. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming, and I will see you next time. Bye.